We're live with Frame and Frame, talking this afternoon about taking care of aging parents. And I am your host and moderator, Suzanne Ratty, and I'm joined by Winsome Brown with Lean on D, and also with Tara Frame at Frame and Frame. So, ladies, you want to give yourselves a quick introduction and just tell folks why this discussion is particularly important to you?
Yeah, go ahead, Winsome. I'll let you start.
Thank you so much. Well, I am Winsome Brown. I'm the co-founder of Lean on D Senior Care Advocates, and I'm a certified dementia life coach, a certified senior advisor, and most importantly, I am a caregiver. And I started this journey when my mother was diagnosed with dementia at age 52. So this is why Lean on D actually got started.
Thanks for sharing. Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Frame with Frame and Frame, and I focus on estate planning, elder law, and probate and estate administration. And I work with clients all the time, every week, who come in trying to get their affairs in order. And I met Winsome a few months ago and connected with her and found out about her business. And I thought it was just a great, great business that she's in. And I wanted to see how her business could help my clients. So we're going to be giving some really good information today during this presentation.
Yeah, so for those of the folks who are joining us, the discussion today is taking care of aging parents, and we're going to go over a quick agenda for you. We hope to keep it to about an hour, but we are going to open up for a live Q&A session at the end. So if you've got questions for Tara or Winsome, certainly put them in the chat, but also we will have a live Q&A at the end of the discussion. Basically, what we're going to talk about on the agenda, as you see, are the emotional, financial, and legal issues that surround folks that are serving as caregivers, either spouses, partners, or children of folks that are getting up in years, as they say. And we're going to talk about some of the long-term care issues, health care and legal issues. And we're also going to provide you with a few solutions by the time that this discussion is over. And we're going to focus on some communication with family members that's so important, because these are obviously sensitive discussions for all family members involved. First slide I wanted to just throw out for some conversation, and this one particularly is on the sandwich generation. A lot of folks do not know that they're actually in the sandwich generation. This is folks that are between the age of 40 to 50. They're typically offering emotional or financial support to children under 30 and offering emotional or financial support to parents over 65 while working for full-time and while trying to save for their own retirement. And with some of those statistics, hopefully, or not hopefully, but I'll bet that some of our audience members didn't realize they were part of the sandwich generation. So that is obviously the target market here that that generally participate in these conversations, because they're just starting to really try to balance and juggle those two roles. You know, Winsome, what have you seen with folks that are kind of in that sandwich generation, kind of juggling those two roles?
So one of the things I notice or I've seen with some of my clients is that just how unprepared they are to deal with, aging parents plus, plus the children. It is, I'll get phone calls from, I moved across the bridge and my mom lives in Annapolis and I just can't I can't get across the bridge on a Friday to get her to a doctor's appointment. It's just simple things like that we wouldn't even think about, because when mom was in her prime, she could get her own self to the doctor. So, and that's something even myself is dealing with right now with managing my business, managing my mother-in-law. I have a daughter in college, and then I have a child that's in elementary school. So by just, taking them all around town with the one that's in elementary school, swim teams, football, soccer, it's a lot. And then you have to worry about, okay, mom needs to get to the doctor. Oh my God, mom
Yeah.
got hospitalized. Why? So there's so many things that we're seeing, and we're not really stopping to think about how this is going to affect our daily lives.
Yeah, I think me being in the sandwich generation, I know I can relate to that. What about you, Tara? What do you see from your perspective?
Yeah, I do see a lot of people in that situation, and a lot of times when they're coming to my office, they're dealing with maybe a health crisis that has happened, and they're really not prepared for it. So they haven't thought ahead to when this happens, how are they going to deal with the situation? So, we're trying to educate people to plan ahead and not wait until the last minute when a crisis hits, because not only are they dealing with their own family situations and, like Winsome said, their own kids and their own schedules, now they're dealing with an aging parent who's having a health crisis. And if they don't have the right documents in place, or have any documents in place, it's really just adds so much stress and pressure on the family when, we can help, alleviate that stress.
Yeah, so we're going to get into a lot of conversations regarding those legal issues. And talking to the next slide, and I think this is something that was a little bit surprising to me, but 70% of adults over the age of 65 are going to require either a caregiver or long-term care services, or both, during their lifetime. And that's a pretty hefty number.
But what? I just want to jump in here, because I think when people say long-term care, they're assuming it's somebody that's in a nursing home, not realizing that a long-term care could be having somebody in your home to come in and help you. So for instance, if you're having issues with your ADL, so that's bathing, toileting, things like that, you're going to need somebody to come in and help. And long-term, planning for long-term care, or even getting like long-term care insurance and stuff like that, can help with pay for some of those things. So long-term care, thinking about your future, is not just about thinking about when you're in a nursing home. You have to think about when you're at home and you're having issues standing up, and you're having balance issues, things like that, because then you have balance issues, you're at risk for falling, or you can't prepare meals anymore because pots are hot and you just can't lift them. So there's just so many reasons to think about really how to get, how to think about how we're going to live well while we age. And that's incredibly important for us to think about. And we should not want to talk about it. We should always want to talk about it.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that
on that topic, I mean, the goal is trying to avoid going into a nursing home, and there's other things that you can do if you plan ahead. So really, I think the ultimate goal for most people will be to stay at home and age in place as long as they can. And there's so many services, if you do a pre-plan, right, you will have the resources available to be able to pay someone like Winsome to come in and provide their services. So it's just really important to pre-plan to age in place, as opposed to sort of look for crisis planning in a nursing home.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think Winsome brings up a good point, is that when we think about long-term care, we generally tend to think about nursing home, or well beyond our years kind of care, right? And towards the end of life even. But I will just share a quick example that in my case, my father had a stroke. And that created all sorts of long-term care issues, both immediate and then, for the foreseeable future. So I think what's so important is that it's not just planning for like, oh, when I'm 80 or 90, this is what I want to happen. It's understanding that those decisions and those circumstances can come up at any time. And if you don't have a plan in place, it really puts the family in a tough situation, not just with the financial considerations, but emotionally. So I think that's a really good point, Winsome. So back to our slide for just a minute, and Winsome, I'm going to let you talk about this, each particular point in specific. But what is long-term care and when is it needed? You want to tackle that one, Winsome?
So yeah, so as I had mentioned before, long-term care is not just about, staying in a hospital. It's really about, as Susan had mentioned, her dad who got sick, you needed somebody to come in and help. So sometimes it's just bringing in a home health care company that is going to come in and do some skilled care for mom or dad, if and when they have some sort of surgery. Or it can be, mom has, she had a stroke and she needs help with rehab. So you would then, you will work with a home healthcare company that would bring somebody in to help you to do that. And again, that would just be for a short period of time. So if you need more additional services in the state of Maryland, you would then go to a residential service agency. And am I still on?
Oh, yep, you're here.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it did something funky. I'm like, what am I still on? So yes, I'm sorry. So in the state of Maryland, like a Visiting Angels, a Synergy, those companies are residential service agencies that would then provide additional support. So they'll provide the bathing, the feeding, the dressing, the toileting. So those are some of the other support that's going to be needed because, mom or dad has a stroke. You come in, the nurse is only going to be there for probably about an hour. So, but mom still needs to be taken to the bathroom, or if mom is bedridden, somebody needs to bathe her and dress her and things like that. So these are some of the things that you have to think about. So it's not just about being in a hospital. And then you also have like what happened to us now where when we had COVID last year, or we still have COVID, a lot of the seniors needed companionship. So we also have companion care. So these are, again, things that you need to think about. And especially if, say, you're caregiving from far away, you don't know what is going on with mom or dad. So having somebody to come in just to pop in and check to see, hey, is mom functioning okay in the home? Can she still go to the grocery store? Does she need additional services? So that's all of the services that is provided in that. So, and I think what people don't realize is, I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients, she has Alzheimer's, and one of the simple things that people don't even realize, the refrigerator and having old food in the refrigerator. She doesn't have the wherewithal to go in the refrigerator and throw out the old food. So it's important that somebody comes in, goes through the refrigerator, make sure she's not eating anything that's not safe, make sure that the home is safe for her. So that's the point of having these caregivers, and to make sure that, mom is getting some companionship and somebody she can talk to and talk about the concerns she has on the news and things like that. So that's what the caregivers do.
Yeah. And here's another graphic we want to throw out for everyone. This one in particular, and Tara, you might be able to add some color to this, but the thing that really stuck out to me is that 1 in 4 adults are caregivers. And more importantly than that is that folks in my age group in particular are taking off a lot of time from work to be caregivers. And in a moment, we're going to even dig into that further as far as the costs go. But Terry, you want to speak to this slide?
Yeah. So I think people don't want to think about when they're going to be incapacitated, and they don't meet. Planning and pre-planning means you have to think about it, and you have to have these very difficult discussions with your family. And a lot of people just want to put it off. But I can tell you, it doesn't do your family, and you're not doing them any favors by not discussing it, because when the time comes and then they don't know what the person would want, what decisions to be made. And, it's so much better when all of it is laid out. They've had a discussion. The whole family knows what's going to happen in the event of incapacity, or, if long-term care is needed. So it's just really important. And yeah, I wish more people would think about those the longer planning.
I think this slide in particular, Tara, you could probably speak to, but talk to us a little bit. I don't think, at least I certainly didn't. I don't think most people understand that even if you need long-term care, for a short-term period. It's a lot of money. Can you talk about that for just a moment, Tara?
Yeah. So if you need a level 2 or level 3 care, the cost is going to be somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 a month. So if somebody needs those services, and the family savings can dwindle in the blink of an eye if they're paying $12,000 a month for any period of time. And there's really no need to do that if they think and plan ahead. So that's just why we try to encourage planning ahead and putting things in place and not waiting until you actually need it. It's like car insurance. You have your car insurance hoping you never need it, but at some point in your lifetime, you're going to need your car insurance. And this is the same. It's basically, an insurance plan to provide for you when you're going to need it the most.
Yeah, and I just a disclaimer for anybody watching: neither Winsome nor me nor Tara sell long-term care insurance.
We don't.
So our goal in giving you this broadcast isn't to sell you insurance, although Tara and Winsome could probably refer you to a few folks who offer these services.
Yeah.
But I think in addition to considering long-term care insurance, there are other strategies, as Tara mentioned, and there are certainly a lot of other services that Winsome can provide. And I think that brings us up to the discussion about Medicare versus Medicaid. Yes. Again, just reflecting on personal experience, I had no idea what the difference was. I thought my parents had both. I thought one was just for, people who are really not able to support themselves. I just had no idea. So Winsome and Tara, which one of you would like to address this particular distinguishing factor first?
Okay, Tara, I'll give that to you.
So Medicare, this is people get these confused all of the time. Medicare is basically health insurance for the population over the age of 65. And then you pay for a supplement to cover prescriptions and copays and things like that. Medicare does not cover long-term care. So it will pay for rehab up to 100 days, but you still have a copay. But after that 100 days is over, if a person needs long-term care in a nursing home, Medicare does not pay for that. Medicaid, on the other hand, people confuse. They think it's welfare. It certainly is, provides insurance and medical treatment for people below a certain income, but it is also there for the elderly or seniors who need long-term care and don't have the resources to pay it. So there are strategies, that we can use to help someone apply and be eligible for Medicaid. But you have to, the important thing is you have to plan ahead, and waiting till the last minute, it really limits the options available to the family.
Yeah, and Winsome, you were mentioning earlier in the broadcast that certain services are paid. So for example, some of the services you mentioned can be paid by Medicare. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, so Medicare Part B, I believe, will pay for some of the services. So, for instance, again, if you need a physical therapy, your doctor, and I'll give you a quick example. So, with my mother-in-law, she needed physical therapy, and you call up the doctor. She needs physical therapy, and Medicare is going to cover something like that. But for something else, so for instance, if she needs skilled nursing, they'll cover that as well. So like trachs and things like that, they'll cover that as well. Medicaid does pay for some aides to come into the home. It's the reimbursement to the companies are incredibly low. It's only $18 an hour. So just keep in mind that if you're paying somebody $15 an hour and it's $18 an hour, and that's why most of the time these things are private pay, because they're just not paying enough for what is needed.
So let's digress just for a moment, because I want to give some real examples of why this discussion is so important, especially to folks who, maybe they're caring for an aging parent to some extent. But, Winsome, I know you have firsthand experience. Talk to us about the implications and maybe even the statistics of dementia and how all of this is, impacts someone who's diagnosed with an illness like that.
So let's first of all explain what dementia is, because what tends to happen is people are like, what is dementia? Is it Alzheimer's? So dementia itself is an umbrella term that describes a group of symptoms that's going to affect your memory, thinking, and behavior. And that's going to affect it severe enough to interfere with your daily life. So that's what dementia is. So there's different types of dementia. So there's over 70 different types of dementia. The four most common types of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is 60 to 80% of all the cases that's diagnosed. Then we have vascular dementia, and that's if somebody has a stroke and you're having some issues with the blood flow to the brain, you can end up with vascular dementia. Then you have dementia with Lewy bodies, and then you also have frontal temporal dementia. So those are like the four most common types of dementia.
And what is the statistics? Like, is it 1 out of 4 or 65? I might even have it on an upcoming slide, but.
So regarding the statistics, I believe that, it increases with age. So as you age, any over 65, and I don't have the statistics offhand, but over 65, you're at a higher likelihood of getting dementia. I believe at age 70 and above, I think it's 3 out of 10 people are diagnosed with dementia. I may have that a little bit incorrect, so I don't want to, you can double check my facts there. But it's important that, we pay attention to, cognitive impairments, because a lot of times people assume that dementia is a normal part of aging. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. So that's important. And I want to talk about some of the warning signs of dementia, because people tend to, just assume, it's you're supposed to get forgetful as you age, but there's different types of forgetting. So, forgetting recently learned information, for example, is one of the signs of dementia. So for instance, you say to mom, hey mom, we're having pot roast for dinner. 10 minutes later, mom will say, what are we eating for dinner? I'm like, oh, I told you we're having pot roast. You never told me that. Okay. All right. That's one of the signs. Then, challenging with you'll see mom having challenges with just things that she can normally do with ease. So for instance, following a recipe. So, mom's is normally known for her macaroni and cheese. Then you add mom, it's Thanksgiving, mom's going to make the macaroni and cheese. She can't get started with making it because she just, she can't follow the steps in making the recipe. So things like that. You also have some additional signs are going to be confusion with time or place. So you'll have dad saying, where am I? How did I get here? He's at home. He doesn't remember that he was at home. Or he's asking you, where am I sleeping tonight? These are some of the common questions that, my clients are telling me. I just had a client today. She was telling me that's one of the questions that her husband's always asking her. Where am I sleeping? Where am I sleeping?
So Winsome,
go ahead.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? So with all of that, I think it's interesting to correlate that one of the services you provide that I wish we would have had, we were just stumbling along when this all happened in our family, but you provide a home assessment, correct?
Yes, so we do a home safety assessment, and the whole point of the home safety assessment is to make sure that the home is safe for your loved one. Because when you think about it, we buy our homes normally in our 30s and our 40s, when things, a low toilet is not a big deal. When you're a 30-year-old, you sit on the toilet, no big deal. At 85, trying to sit down on a toilet and getting up is a problem, because then what we tend to see is then you'll see loose sinks, because the parent is using the sink to hoist themselves up or off the toilet, as opposed to saying, hey, we need some grab rails, because sometimes parents are even afraid to even mention that to the kids, because they're thinking, okay, it's some loss of my independence, and then kind of suggest things to mom or dad, versus just coming in and putting in grab rails and bars and everything all over the bathroom and things like that. So it's important that we pay attention to our loved ones and how we see their cognitive, we're seeing decline in their cognitive impairments or even decline in their movement. And I just want to give you a couple more signs of dementia, which would be decrease or poor judgment. So for instance, this is where you would see mom would never take a phone call from somebody talking about, oh, we need some money because my kids are dying. You just need to send me $20 and, or give me your bank account or something like that. Historically, mom would hang the phone up. Now mom's judgment is impaired. So she's going to say, okay, that's fine. I'll send money and send and send and send. One of the other signs that you'll see is changes in moods. So as opposed to the person is normally a very easygoing person, they get frustrated and angry easily. So those are some of the other signs that we need to look out for.
Yeah, and I think, in reviewing our next slide, Tara can probably speak to this, but nobody can forecast when dementia is going to happen. If we're kind of using dementia as kind of our case study here, but nobody can forecast when that's going to happen. And there are some serious consequences and time frames as it relates to that. So Tara, I'm going to pull up the next slide if I can get my screen to work. And here we go. Let's see if, there we go. Tara, you want to talk specifically about this slide, if it pulls up again? We're having technical difficulties. I apologize. While the slide's pulling up, Tara, the title of the slide is Planning is Key. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so we encourage people to have these conversations well in advance of, a crisis happening. So it's important for people to know, well, what, if there's a medical crisis, what does my father want me to do? Or what does my mother, what are her wishes? So having that in writing really alleviates the stress on the family, because they'll have an idea of what the parents want. So important things that have to be in place for everyone really is, a medical power of attorney, where someone's going to make your medical decisions, and you want to appoint someone that's going to make the decisions that you would otherwise make. So that's why it's important to have these conversations. And financial power of attorney, if you're incapacitated, they're able to pay your bills and file your taxes and run your day-to-day, affairs, so that things don't fall behind and get lost in the shuffle. So, with planning, and you also don't want to get to the point. I mean, I have people call me and say, well, my mom is going into an assisted living or nursing home, and we need to get a power of attorney. And then come to find out, if she's already been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and is to the point where she doesn't understand the document she's signing, we can't prepare that document and have her sign it. So you're looking at potentially, a guardianship proceeding, which is a lot more cumbersome and expensive and takes a lot longer than just having a power of attorney signed early before, when the parent is still lucid. So really for legal documents such as a power of attorney and a will, we just need that person to know at the time they have to have a moment of lucidity. So just because sometimes say, oh, my mom, has dementia, that doesn't mean you have a bad day every day. That means, you can have a good day and then you can have a bad day. So if they're on a good day and they understand and they're very clear and communicate, this is who I want to make my medical decisions. This is who I want to be in charge of my financial affairs. Then we can prepare those documents. So it's really important to do it and have them in place before, before the progression of the disease or the mental incapacity.
Yeah. And, I think that further illustrates that this is a complex situation and nobody knows what the future holds, period. So the planning part's really important. I think this one you guys can probably both talk to this slide specifically for our parents who say, we've got it all handled. It's all handled. The will's done. You guys don't have to worry about anything. You're going to get your inheritance. Our parents say these things, but they maybe don't realize that there are other considerations way, way more complicated than just did you get your will done? Terry, you want to talk to some of the questions on this slide?
Yeah. So I will kind of say this, every elder law attorney is going to be familiar with, estate planning, but not all estate planning attorneys are familiar with elder law. So when you go to an estate planning attorney, they're basically looking at what happens when you die. That's basically what they're primarily looking at. What's going to happen to your assets? How are we going to distribute the assets? To whom it's going? But with elder law and long-term care planning, we're considering that, but we're also looking at how are you going to be cared for while you're still alive. So you have to have certain provisions in legal documents that give your family the power to do proper planning. And so if you just took a standard power of attorney off the internet, I would say 99% is not going to have the provision that I need in order to help with a long-term care plan for that aspect. So, when I look at the documents and I have them send them to me, that's the first thing I look at. I look at the power of attorney to see what that power of attorney has in it. Because otherwise your life savings can be at risk. I mean, if you're paying $10,000 or $12,000 for a nursing home, and this is the common theme. So you have a couple who's married, and one person is healthy and they're living at home, and the other spouse is not, and they have to be in long-term care. So if you're paying $12,000 a month for your husband to be in long-term care, what's going to happen to the wife who is still healthy and maybe 15 or 20 years younger, and she's got 30 more years to support herself? So we're looking at that, and we want to plan ahead so that healthy spouse has resources, and she's not basically broke at the end of the day when when she needs that care, maybe, when she turns 75 or 80 or 85.
And I know you addressed this in your guide, but there are also strategies for, a family who wants to try to leave a legacy or an inheritance to their children. Quite honestly, as I've learned from you, if without proper planning, if someone requires long-term care, their life savings is probably going to have to be spent on that. But there are some strategies that you can use, correct?
Yes, there are strategies. And most of the time, so with Medicaid, if we're going to, if the goal is to at some point qualify for Medicaid and have Medicaid pay for the long-term care, there's a 5-year look back. So, we definitely want to try to get, pre-plan at least I would, at least 5, 7, 10 years ahead, if we can. If we can't, things do happen, accidents happen, health declines pretty rapidly, and we can still help those families. We just don't have as many options, but we certainly, there still are strategies that we can help. And I think one of the things people say, well, I'm not here to get, Medicaid to pay for everything. But if you spend all the money, right? So mom is in a nursing home, then, you don't have any resources at that point to have a caregiver go in and check on her, or have someone like Winsome go visit her in the nursing home and, provide services to her. Or if you do, the family's paying out of their own pocket because all of the other money's gone. So, to be able to set aside an amount of money that will be there to provide these extra services for a parent, I think is really important. And it can really, really ease the stress on the family. And then at some point, when the parent passes, then that money would be passed on to the family.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're talking a little bit about long-term care in a skilled or nursing home, but there's a lot of families, mine included, where the primary caregiver is mom.
Yeah.
So Winsome, what kind of advice do you give to folks regarding those situations?
So I think when the primary caregiver is mom, I think, you're going to have to rely on other family members as well, just so that we're not going into caregiver burnout. Because if mom is doing everything for dad, if she has to get him up, shower him, feed him, if he has some dementia, she's trying to have a conversation with him, he can't hold a conversation. This is very stressful for the caregiver. So at that point, the family really needs to come up with some sort of schedule if they can't really afford to have caregivers, but come up with a schedule with the other family members to say, hey, I need, you need to come and help me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and somebody else comes and helps some additional time because I can't do it all. We've had, sometimes even in our own family where we have quite a lot of help, but we've even set up a schedule to say, hey, we have to go somewhere, and we can't take my mother-in-law there because of of mobility issues. So you have to figure out how as a family to do these things. So it's important that we avoid caregivers burnout, because we don't want mom to get resentful or get sick or anything like that. So these are conversations families definitely need to have.
Yeah, and Winsome, I know that you are great about trying to start those conversations. I know Tara's got some guides to start those conversations. So certainly you guys can serve as resources for folks who are looking to try to be preventative in that. We're going to open it up at the moment. We don't necessarily have to conclude the discussion here, but I do want to open it up for some questions. And we had a couple come through, so I'm just going to read those out. One of the first ones was, my mom had to go to memory care this year. My dad's in independent living. Their total cost is $15,000 a month.
Yes.
What happens when their money runs out? Who wants to tackle that one?
So when, if they're in memory care, unfortunately, they have to find additional they have to move out. I've had a client that we were scrambling. So they give you some warning. So they look to see, the particular facility where my client was, they had about, I think they had about $40,000 remaining. And they gave the family some warning to say, hey, we need some additional resources, or mom or dad would have to move out. So we ended up finding a smaller home-based home care place, and that's where mom went. But those, unfortunately, there's no, you run out of funds. You have to, the kids, the money has to come from somewhere, especially if they're in an assisted living. The assisted living is not going to let them stay there for free, and Medicaid
yeah,
is going to pay for that.
I was going to say, and I think to Tara's point, there are some crisis strategies where perhaps the person could qualify for Medicaid, correct, Tara?
That's true, but I would say that assisted living facilities, ALFs, generally they do not accept Medicaid. Mm-hmm. So at that point, if the facility accepts Medicaid and they run out of money, then they can't kick them out, and then they would apply for Medicaid, and they could stay there pending the application. And we can also, but they don't have to run out. I mean, that's what we're trying to educate people. Right. They don't have to run out of money. So there's things you can do where you don't have to run out of money, but we can still get that coverage as long as it's a Medicaid participating facility.
Yeah.
And those are rare. So, so they're not.
Yeah. Well, just driving home the point again, I think it's all about pre-planning, but, certainly a lot of folks go into this, as my family did, not knowing anything. And you have to do your best. I think that's where both of you are such great resources. I know you've guided me along the way. But I think that's why it's so important to have resources, because there may be options, and when there aren't, at least you can plan for those scenarios. A next question is, when do you know, and this is probably, well, I don't know, when do you know when it is the right time to make decisions on behalf of the loved one?
That's a tough one. So yeah, I mean, if it's, the easy answer is if the doctor, so if the primary care doctor basically is saying, I don't think, your mom or dad are able to manage their day-to-day affairs. They might be able to physically be okay, but maybe mentally they're not able to manage money, or if they're giving away money, or, they're becoming susceptible to scams. I know I had a client whose father wired his entire retirement savings to a scam overseas, and they lost like $250,000.
Oh my God.
So, had they had a proper plan in place, she would have probably been able to find out that was happening before it actually happened. So, getting a doctor's certificate is the easiest way. But if the doctor's not really committed, then, it's tough. You just have to make a decision as a family, and depending on the situation, kind of take over the finances or the decision making. But
And I think
it's a fine
One
line.
other thing with that is that we have to make sure that, we're probably going to the doctor with mom or dad, because, we have, our doctor service visit, and what'll happen is they're not, a lot of times seniors aren't disclosing to the doctor really truly what is going on. We even had a personal situation like that. So you would go in, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. If an adult child or somebody's not there to say, hey, this is what's really happening, if we're not speaking up, then the doctor really can't help. So it's important that, again, the adult child or the spouse is present and paying attention to what is definitely going on, so that they can then impart the proper knowledge.
Yeah. We've got another couple of questions here, and we're running on time, so we're going to answer these, and then we'll give anybody that's here. We've got some free resources, some downloads, all sorts of good stuff for you. So stick around for just a couple more minutes. But Tara, one question that was asked is, what is the difference between a living will and a regular will?
Okay. So a living will, it's also called an advance directive. That's where you're making the decision that in the event of, you're brain dead, or you're at end of life, or you have a terminal condition where you're not going to recover and have any quality of life, you're telling the medical providers, I do not want to be kept alive with breathing tubes or feeding tubes or any extraordinary measures. So that's called a living will. So that's why you're still alive. A will, a last will and testament, only takes effect when you die. So your powers of attorney are for while you're alive, but unable to make your own decisions or manage your own affairs. And then that dies with you. And once you pass, your will or your trust takes over.
Yeah, and I've heard you say many times, a power of attorney dies with you, which I thought power of attorney could, okay, we got it. We can do whatever dad needs. So that's really important, I think, for people to understand. All right, another question. And Tara, this is going to be way too long for this scenario, so you're going to probably have to abbreviate, but can you explain the estate recovery claim as it relates to Medicaid?
Yes. So, so any amounts that Medicaid pays out on behalf of a person for their care, the state of Maryland has a right to dollar for dollar reimbursement. So when you open their estate, if you have assets in their estate, their home, bank accounts, anything else that they own that has to go through the legal process, they can file a claim in that estate to get reimbursed. So basically, the Medicaid gets reimbursed dollar for dollar right off the top before the children or heirs get anything.
So I think that directly correlates to if you're able to do planning 5 years or more before any illness, right? Isn't that where that's so important and valuable?
Yes, it is. And so if we do the planning basically, and it's more than 5 years, theoretically, our goal is not to have assets go through an estate. Therefore, there's nothing to claim against because you don't have a probate estate, which is the legal process of passing assets from a deceased person to their heirs by way of trust. A trust never gets filed. It's not public, it's private. So that's how we use trusts with long-term care planning.
All right, we're going to wrap up on this final question. At what age should I consider a long-term care plan strategy?
I would say really anyone over the age of 65, for sure, they should look at it and talk to someone about it. Or if you have a health condition where it's, that more than likely it's going to worsen or progress. So if you have health issues, that it's really important, or if you're over 65, that's my opinion. And I think that's an appropriate age to start looking into it, and at least have the discussion to see what the options are.
Yeah, and the big thing that I've heard over and over again is to begin the conversation. These are tough conversations. They're tough conversations with mom and dad. They were tough with siblings. I mean, sometimes the siblings don't respond well to these conversations. Tara, you've got some great tools. You want to just talk about those for a minute?
Yeah, so at our website, at frameandframe.com, we have some free guides to download. So we have long-term care planning, which is a pretty extensive and substantive guide regarding long-term care planning. And then we have a long-term care planning checklist, which is, a checklist of things you need to be thinking about, or you need to have completed in order to start, preparing for long-term care and having a long-term care plan. So
Great.
you can go there, and we have other guides as well for estate planning and estates. So,
or of course, they can call you for a private consultation.
yeah,
And Winsome, you've got some resources too. You want to just finish up and talk to folks a little bit about that?
Yes, we actually have, we offer Dementia Live, and actually that is actually free. If we do that we normally do that at churches, community centers, and that is basically just having people understand. We bring them through what it's like to actually have dementia. So we put on some goggles, we put on the glasses, and we run you through the actual experience of what it's like to have dementia. So that helps you as the caregiver to understand a little bit better what mom or dad is dealing with. And also on our website, we do have some booklets about home safety, and you can download that as well. Some home safety booklets. We have some veterans information as well. So we do give some information to the veterans regarding the services that's out there for them. So check out our website, leanond.com, and you'll find all the resources we have available in our resource section.
Great stuff, ladies. I think that was a lot of information to cover in roughly 45 minutes, but we did it.
Yay.
We did it. And technology just worked right with us, because it was really, we were struggling with it before we went live, guys. So thanks for bearing with us. All right. Well, thank you, Winsome. Thank you, Tara. And they gave their websites to you. So you can certainly reach out to frameandframe.com or leanond.com. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.